No mai, haere mai. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora. Ko Brian Crump ahau. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Public Trust Hall on this beautiful mid-spring evening for a extravaganza in planning consultation. A 3-in-1 in which today, this evening, we'll be bringing you details of Wellington City's district plan, its cycling plan, and just to make it more interesting, let's get Willie moving, the transport plan, options for it for the future of this city. I'm Brian Crump. It's lovely to have you all here, and it's lovely to know that also watching this event online, we have 305 people watching at the live stream, so hello to you as well. Tēnā koutou. Now, the release of New Zealand's draft district plan and draft cycle plan, and let's get Willie moving, well, it's quite a challenge, but what we're hoping to do over the next 1 3/4 hours is to run through those plans and those options. By 7:45 tonight, as you head home, or as you head off to do the dishes or put the kids to bed or whatever you might be doing at home, or check out your favourite television show or radio program, we hope that whatever else is spinning around in your head, you'll have a clear idea of how Wellington City wants to shape future development, because that's what the district plan is, a rule book for development, basically, who can do what where, and how we plan to achieve those on top of several fault lines in a changing climate. You will know how the council hopes to fit that in with plans for more cycleways, and how the council and Let's Get Willie Moving, which is a local and central government initiative, hope it'll all fit in with options for public transport to the city's south and east, not to mention a state highway. We may not have all the answers, and you may not like all you see and hear, but you'll be armed with a fair grasp of the issues, ready to make a submission or attend one of the many public meetings council and Let's Get Willie Moving have planned, coming to a suburb near you, or just have an intelligent conversation with your friends and whānau. We have speakers outlining the plans. We've got a panel ready to chew over them as well, and we welcome your questions, which you can get and send through to us by going onto the Slido app, sli.do. More information on that later on. But before that, to get the audience warmed up both here and at home, I've got a few people that have come along to discuss a few of the issues sideline. And they're all lined up to my right, to your left if you're looking on the camera. I might as well speak to the first person who's there, Isabella. We've got a cross mark for you here. Kia ora, Isabella. Isabella from Talk Wellington. You wrote an article about this morning, didn't you? Or you had one published, didn't you?
There's a whole exciting series about reimagining Wellington that's rolling out in the Dom Post. So I encourage everybody to get into the paper and get stimulated. Yeah.
What are the things about Wellington as it stands, Pornic as it stands, that you most want to keep, Isabella?
We've got some of the most beautiful wild spaces, wild water within a stone's throw distance of the city. And that's one of the things that makes it glorious to live here. It's one of the things that keeps people coming back here despite housing crises and pretty terrible transport. So let's keep people's access to green spaces, to the harbour, to our streams, and let's enable heaps more people to enjoy that goodness.
What do you want to change most?
I'm a bit of a transport nerd and also a bit of a development nerd, which is why I'm slightly overdressed. This is my version of a movie premiere, except we get to...
Way to go, Isabella.
We get to pick, it's like a pick a path novel. We get to choose what the plot of this movie is, and it's going to play out for our children and our grandchildren and our grandchildren's children. So what we need to change the most, I think for my money, that nexus between where we put people and where we put the things that they want to do every day and how we let them move between. That's basically everything, but that's what we're here for, and I'm excited to hear the options.
Kia ora, Isabella. Dave, Leslie, and I think Paminda. We might try and have two at once. I don't know if the camera can handle that. We're going to try. Because you'll have to come around a bit, Paminda, so you're on mic. Paminda is from the New Zealand Council of Women. And where are you from, Leslie?
I'm representing Taranaki Whanui.
What for you are the things you most want to see kept in the city first?
I think the social spaces, definitely having people in the city being able to do a lot of the social stuff, all the kind of activities, getting people together, that kind of community aspect of it I think is really nice, and being a student city as well, I think it's really important for young people to have spaces where they can, go see other people, go get involved in the community, yeah.
What are the biggest challenges facing the city? What do you want to see changed about it?
We need to grow, but still retain our livability. And that means we need to get more people living in what we regard as the inner city, while still maintaining the livability that we treasure now.
Do you get sick of traffic, being stuck in it?
I'm lucky enough to walk to work, but I see people around me stuck in traffic, and I see that's so pointless.
Paminda, what do you want to see changed?
I think I would like more accessible transport for our communities who rely on public transport, who don't have cars. A lot of our student community, a lot of our disabled communities all rely on that kind of accessible transport and being able to get into the city and making sure everything that they can be involved in is accessible to them. And transport's a huge part of that, being able to get from point A to B safely and inclusively.
Leslie and Paminda, kia ora. Thanks
Kia
for
ora.
joining me.
Kia ora.
Now moving into their space, I think we can probably do time again. 3 might be a bit of a pinch. I have with me Alicia Hall and Asia Brownlee. Now, Alicia, you're with, is it Generation Zero now? That's Asia. And you, Alicia?
Parents to Climate Aotearoa.
So both of you, for you, the reason that you're doing the work you are about, you'll cut the future of this city and the future of this planet, right? So from your point of view, in terms of addressing our share of reducing fossil fuel emissions, what do you want to see coming out of this plan and this consultation process?
Generation Zero are really excited that we see a shift in the conversation and that we see a council that is willing to prioritise people and planet. And so I think it is really essential for people to make those links between housing densification, people living close together, and then having the effective transport and cycling to link people to where they work and play.
Pretty much what she said, but adding a parent lens. I want to normalise public transport, cycling and biking for our kids. And at the moment, so many families are forced into their car because it's so expensive, it's not reliable. We're just not able to easily make that change. And I can't afford an electric car, so I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite when I use the car to come into the city.
Alicia, Asia, thanks very much. Kia ora. And coming in now, from Cycle Wellington is Jonathan Coppard. I am right in saying you're from Cycle Wellington?
That is correct, yes.
Kia ora, Jonathan. Well, for you, since you're part of a transport advocacy group, what are you wanting to see out of the Let's Get Wellington Moving aspect of the plan today?
I'm really excited to see the light rail coming in. Sometimes, maybe if I don't want to ride a bike, I really want to sit in a lovely, beautiful mass rapid transit through the city. That sounds really incredible. The new tunnel for walking and cycling that's proposed in some of the options, I think is a really great thing as well.
The new tunnel also, there are options which include increasingly private road vehicle access, or at least keeping it. We'll have a tunnel that now runs from the Basin Reserve down to almost to Kilburnie. Is that in keeping with what you think where you think the city should go?
I think we've got to be quite careful with where our efforts are directed. So if we are building things that take a lot of carbon-intensive construction to build, then that may not be the emissions that we need to reduce in the short term. So things like bike lanes, pop-up cycle lanes, things in the bike master plan that's also coming out tonight, those are the things that can be done really quickly and enable people to change their travel behaviours to low carbon options immediately.
Do you believe this is going to happen this time? We had some cycleways that were announced and built before, and then everything seemed to get bogged down, Jonathan.
Yeah, that was really disappointing, but I seem to find I'm always an optimist, so I'm here, I'm really excited. This plan is really incredible, and it's on the same level as what we're seeing overseas.
Kia ora, Jonathan. Before I let you go, have you got time on you? Has anyone got the time on?
It is almost 6 o'clock.
Almost
2
6
minutes.
o'clock. Great. Oh, we're on time. Unbelievable. Thank you very much, all of you. I hope that got you a little bit warmed up. It's just a starter for 10 in terms of what we're going to be dealing with this evening. In a few minutes, we will have a series of speakers representing local government, representing iwi, representing the regional council, representing central government, who will talk about the plans that we want to discuss tonight. And then we'll have a more in-depth presentation from Let's Get Willie Moving and also from the Wellington City Council. But now to set the scene, I'm going to give the cue to a video which hopefully will appear up on screen, and that's going to give me a chance to move from here in front of this camera to the rostrum up there, and we'll begin the next part of the meeting. Roll cameras, if cameras are ready to roll.
Kia ora everybody and welcome to Our City Tomorrow, our 3-in-1 consultation kick-off event for the district plan, draft district plan, for the draft cycle plan, and for Let's Get Willie Moving. And welcome also to those who are watching online, all 305 of you. Maybe the number has already gone up. I hope it's not going down. I'm Brian Crump, by the way. Before we do anything more, I would like to acknowledge the whenua that we're standing on, the moana we stand beside, and the people of that place. I'd like to invite Ihaia Pukitapu from Taranaki Whanui to bless and open this event with a karakia.
Tēnā rā tātou te whānau, ko te me tuatahi ki tō tātou nei atua me karakia tātou. E monore korore ki tātou e mai ngā rongo ki te whenua whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Ei mua koe i a mātou e ihoa e toi a mātou katoa, ko koe tono e whakakai a mātou, kia whai korore e koe roti a mātou mai. E mea timata, e mea mai, e mea whakahoti roti a koe, kia whiwhai mātou i te oro tonitanga ki te mea ta whai tia nei e koe, korore ki tō ingoa tapu. Āmine.
Ngā mihi e te rangatira, tēnā koe, kia ora. Well, we're just about ready to go. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're here in person in this wonderful auditorium, please make sure you've done your COVID scan and your COVID sign-in, that stuff. You'll see emergency exits are marked behind you as the main one. There's also the main entrance. Loos are behind me, to my right, possibly to your left of me. In the event of a big shake, should things really begin to happen, we are to gather Go out the main entrance, turn right at the front entrance exit and go down to Lambton Quay 117. 117 Lambton Quay, outside Wishbone, the corner of Stout and Ballant Streets. We will gather there. If you're with us at the venue tonight, just a heads up that there will be photographs taken. You might have noticed them already. Please let the photographer know if you do not wish your photo to be taken and potentially made available as part of the public record of this event. Now, if you're watching online, you'll have your own health and safety plans sorted out, because I don't know where your nearest emergency exit is or your toilet, and that's probably just as well. But we are seeking your questions, whether you're in the room, and you can send them in to sli.do. That's SLI.do, the Slido app. The event number is 879762. That's SLI.do. It's all lowercase, if that matters. And the event number is 879762. You can also tick, while you're there, any questions you like that you already see up there. The event has been recorded, so in your own time, go to wcc.nz/tomorrow. The recording will be uploaded in the next few days. However, if you do need to go to the level sort of the crisis, that's what you do. Put the tamariki to bed. Now let's begin. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. No mai haere mai. Ko Brian Crump, toku ingoa. Ko Worcester Beacon, te manga. Ko Seven, te awa. Ko Ingarangi, te iwi. Ko Brami, te hapu. Ko Kidderminster Town Hall, te marae. Ko Joan Clayton Green, Raua ko Hari Crump, te matua. No tamaki makaro aho. Kia ora. Hello, welcome. I'm Brian Crump, and I just gave you my pepeha. My family come from England. That's my iwi. Is Worcester Beacon, which overlooks the Midlands. My river is the Severn. I'm from Auckland. My parents are Joan Clayton Green and Harry Crump, and my marae, although I haven't been there yet, is Kidderminster Town Hall. Welcome to our special hui, our city tomorrow. That's my pepeha. The people, the earth, the water that I'm connected to that make me who I am. Why did I just mention a lot of places, but not this place, Wellington, Te Whanganui Atara? Because I suspect many of you here tonight and online also whakapapa back or are connected to many places far from here. But the power of this place, its geographical location, its mana as the seat of government, its spirit, wild, windswept, shaky, sometimes rather shit, sometimes indescribably beautiful, is why we are here and why so many others will be here soon. And that future here for us and for many to come is what we are discussing here, or wherever you are, if not in this wonderful auditorium. This evening we are launching for public consultation 3 key plans for the city's future. Its district plan, the rules governing what goes where, how high, how low, the plan for the city's new cycling network, and options, thanks to Let's Get Willie Moving, for rapid mass public transport linking the central city with suburbs to the east and south. And of course, that's also associated with what the government, Waka Kotahi, the NZTA, is going to do with the main highway corridor, State Highway 1 corridor, that runs through the city. Have we bitten off more than we can chew tonight? Let's find out. We have divided this hui into 2 sections. First, speakers will present options for Wellington's district plan. He mahere mokawa mo puniki. And Let's Get Willie Moving will propose its public transport options. We'll also hear from the government, Waka Kotohi. But first, let's go to the mayor of this city, the mayor of Poneke. Being the mayor of Poneke, Wellington, Te Whanganui-a-Tara, by definition probably means you're between a rock and a hard place. You promise things, you may not be able to deliver on all of them. Dare I mention Shelley Bay? But then there's also plans which Andy Foster campaigned on for better access, road tunnel access between Wellington and its east and south. Is this plan a plan? Is this a vision that Andy Foster shares? Is it all tying together nicely? Please welcome your mayor, Andy Foster.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I want to start off just by a few acknowledgements. First of all, our partners in central government, the Minister I know will be joining us, Greater Wellington Regional Council, Waka Kotahi, and also I want to acknowledge our mana whenua partners, Taranaki Whanui and Ngāti Toa Rangatira. Looking around the room, I also want to acknowledge many fellow elected representatives, both central and local government, City Council and Regional Council. Stakeholders, and I look around the room and see so many people who've got a really tight, really strong involvement in this mahi. Residents, and we've also already briefed the media, but there may be some members of the media here too. Today is a milestone moment for our city. Today is the day we unveil the plans to get Wellington moving. Today, we launch an ambitious plan to deliver transformational change. It sits alongside everything else that we are doing to create a resilient, vibrant, inclusive, and green city. This plan has 3 integrated pillars, and I think you already heard that integration commentary from some of the panellists, if you like, over here. Transport and urban development coming together. Let's get Wellington moving, mass rapid transit and state highway improvements, and don't forget the already announced City Streets program, our new district plan, and the 10-year cycle network plan. These 3 pillars are integrated, and together they will deliver much needed new housing and an inclusive, prosperous, safe, low carbon city. The first of those 3 pillars is Let's Get Wellington Moving. Let's Get Wellington Moving is a step change transformation compact city that moves more people, more conveniently and more comfortably. We already have in this city easily New Zealand's highest proportion of residents who commute on foot, on bike and on public transport. That proportion has grown constantly over the last 30 years, and now through Let's Get Wellington Moving we plan a transformational change to further grow the numbers of journeys on foot, on bike and on public transport over the next 30 years and beyond. To set up our city for a sustainable future, complete rewrite of the district plan for 21 years. The plan proposes new ways to address both our housing and our climate crises. The district plan provides for housing the extra 50 to 80,000 people that are forecast to live in our beautiful city over the next 30 years. It also provides opportunities for business and employment growth across our city. It does this through providing for urban intensification, especially targeted towards our central city and along mass transit routes. I think you've already heard this, but compact urban form and delivering growth along these routes underpins and is critical to the investment in mass transit. The 2 of these have to go together. And more people living in these areas, in preference to a more spread out Wellington, is critical to high levels of walking, biking and public transport use and to a lower carbon future. Really importantly too, we're working closely with government on how, working together, we can proactively deliver the new housing along these routes. In other words, we don't just stand back and say, here's the zoning, but we actually get in there and help deliver more housing and more urban development. In all of this, it's also important that we create a strong, vibrant, and you've heard that word before, livable communities. The third pillar is our 10-year cycle network plan. Pāniki. We plan an interconnected 147-kilometre network. You're probably wondering about some of the other slides, and I was only when I looked down and go, hang on, that's not the right one, of safer bike and scooting routes to be delivered over the next decade. Cycleway plans will be integrated with public transport, safety and urban amenity plans, taking what we call a whole-of-streets approach across our city. We go in once, we do it all together. The cycle network plan supports our objective of transport choice in a safe, low-carbon city. Wellington has risen to the challenge of city building milestones many times before. If this one looks old, it is. I'm going to give you two short illustrations. In the early days of our city, waterborne diseases like typhoid killed hundreds of people, mostly children. The city faced a stark choice. Status quo of water from wells and bores contaminated by sewage from leaking cesspits, or build the city's first water and sewage systems. Our forebears made the choice of progress. And I think you probably recognise this, but creating those water reservoirs was a direct response to those waterborne diseases. And in 1939, just another of the bold, ambitious decisions that have been made by our forebears. In this case, residents agreed to invest over £100,000, that's about $10 million in today's money, in the Western Access Scheme. Now, if you recognise that, you're doing well. That is now Bowen Street. So that was a transport link that was created to the western suburbs, and it led to further development, in this case of Karori and Northland, and set the scene for other infrastructure development across our growing city. Today, together, we have the opportunity to make an ambitious, transformational step of our own for our growing city and its current and future residents. The three pillars are integrated, coherent, and work alongside all the mahi that we're doing in resilience, arts and culture, community and economic development, and environmental restoration. Over the next 6 weeks, I encourage all Wellingtonians to get involved. Please don't leave it for others to have a say. It is your city too. There'll be strong views. There'll be diverse views. I'm going to encourage everybody, we've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, to use all of them. To listen, and to listen with respect to alternative viewpoints, and to test our own thinking. We're going to be listening very, very carefully. Actually, I was just asked which is my favourite of the 4 options, and I said, in private, I'm not telling you. In public, I'm not telling you. We are in listening mode. We haven't selected a preferred option. Today is about creating our future together. He waka, eke noa.
Kia ora, Andy. Well, now you know somebody else is going to be speaking shortly. But before Michael Wood, the Transport Minister, Darren Ponta from the Greater Wellington Regional Council. A lot of what we're discussing this evening relates to how we get around. And in this city, most of the stuff we need to get around on comes from 3 organisations. There's the Wellington City Council, which does the streets, the local roads, the footpaths, the cycleways, the bike and scooter and car parks. There's the government through Waka Kotahi, NZTA, which funds the State Highway, which runs through the city, State Highway 1. Then there's the Greater Wellington Regional Council, which funds public transport, our trains, our buses, maybe even one day light rail. Its chair is Darren Ponta, born in Zambia, grew up in Denmark and Fiji, moved to Palmerston North with his family in 1980, tried 5 times to get onto the Greater Wellington Regional Council, 5th time lucky in 2010, took over from Chris Laidlaw as chair in 2019, just after the bus reorganisation that some of you might recall. Please welcome to the rostrum with his thoughts on how PT fits into all this, Darren Ponta.
Thanks for that. Sounds like perseverance, which sounds like let's get Wellington moving. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I suppose what I'm really saying is we've sort of finally arrived at a milestone that seems to have been out in the distance for some period, a few false starts, but very proud that we are able to deliver you for your consideration 4 options that are designed to transform the way that we move around our city and move around our region. 4 options which combine mass rapid transit with state highway improvements. So no separation here, no silos. They've all been lumped into 4 relatively easily digestible options. 4 options to address the way that we travel through the CBD to the south and the east, how we navigate Mount Victoria, how we work around the Basin Reserve. 4 options for walking, cycling, public transport, cars and freight. 4 options which challenge us to look to the future. This is not about today, this is about a Wellington in 20, 30, 40, 50 years' time. A region with a far greater population, a city with a far denser population. These next 6 weeks are an opportunity for people and communities across Wellington, and with my Wellington regional perspective on across the Wellington region, to share your views on the options, what you like, what you don't like, and your alternative propositions for what's on the table tonight. So I urge you to have a look at the options, have a look at the artists' impressions, and share your views on those, the videos, the supporting literature. Understand the challenges that Let's Get Wellington Moving is trying to respond to. Take the opportunity to shape the future of Wellington. And as Andy said, we really now sit in the wings to await your response. Kia kaha, etu, stand up and be counted. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Darren. We've had 2 representatives from local government. A big part of the Let's Get Welly Moving program comes from central government. It, after all, is responsible for the main state highway artery that runs right through the middle of Wellington and links it, the central city, not just with all of the country to the north, but also to the suburbs of the south and particularly the east and the airport.
Kia ora koutou katoa, and my apologies for not being able to be with you today, but I am, as I am every day at the moment, here in Auckland. Today, with partners from Wellington City Council and Greater Wellington, we've launched the next phase of Let's Get Wellington Moving, with consultation now underway on options to bring mass rapid transit to Wellington. We're doing this because we all have a vision for Wellington as a great harbour city, a vibrant, diverse, prosperous, sustainable and fair place to live for all of its citizens. We know that to realise the full potential of Wellington, we can't just keep doing the same old things that we've been doing for decades that have led us to this point. And nowhere is that more important than with transport. And that's because transport, when it's done badly, means congestion, frustration, climate pollution, unsafe and uninviting streets, and lost potential. Done well, it means real choices for how people get around. Healthier people, cleaner air, reduced emissions, and thriving streets for people, business, and communities. That's what Let's Get Wellington Moving is about. We're all aware of the history here. Let's Get Wellington Moving began after insensitive plans for a flyover of the Basin Reserve saw Wellingtonians mobilise for something better. Over the course of 2018 and 2019, indicative plans were developed, but progress was not satisfactory. I sent a clear message earlier this year that wasn't acceptable and that everyone had to take accountability for getting the program back on track. We needed to focus on shared objectives and get on with the job for the people of Wellington. I'm delighted with the response since then. It's been heads down, bums up. Initial works on pedestrian improvements will begin before the end of this year. The public's now being consulted on very exciting plans to improve the quays and the Golden Mile, with plans now agreed by the partners. I really do want to acknowledge at this point our partners in this work, Greater Wellington and Wellington City Council, in particular Mayor Andy Foster and Chair Darren Ponta. Both have been outstanding leaders in helping us to advance the program over the past 6 months. Clear political direction and strong project leadership, and I acknowledge our team here, have helped to get us to this point. But today really is where the rubber hits the road, or it might be where the steel hits the rail. People in Wellington have been waiting for a plan for first-class mass rapid transit through the city for years, and today we're presenting 4 options to Wellingtonians for their feedback. Development of mass rapid transit will support more housing and high-quality intensification, enabling more people to live close to where they work, play and learn. All of the options that we're presenting today reduce emissions, improve public transport, reduce travel times, and will support up to 21,000 new homes over and above what we would otherwise see. Importantly, all of the options we're presenting will lead to more walking and cycling through the central city, and we project an increase of 60% cyclists and 40% additional walkers, 14% additional walkers. It's also projected that under these options we'll see around about 500 fewer vehicles in the morning peak hour, and that'll help to ease congestion for freight and for those people who do need to continue driving. Public feedback is needed now to enable more detailed development of the best performing option that we're presenting. I encourage everyone to engage with the options and to have your say to support this program and help us make the right choices for Wellington. I want to acknowledge that no matter which option we go with, there will be some disruption to the city as we build the infrastructure that we need for the future. We've learned the lessons from Auckland City Rail Link, and my strong expectation is that we will pull together a strong business support package in advance of major work starting on the rapid transit projects, and I look forward to working with the Wellington business community on this. You'll also have noticed that we're being upfront with you here in Wellington and also with Aucklanders about some of the choices that we have in front of us. I do think that as leaders it's important that we're upfront with the pros and the cons of different iterations of these big city shaping projects, and I'm really pleased that we're doing that by putting the 4 options on the table here in Wellington. I don't expect everyone in the city to agree. Our job as leaders is to listen to the different views, to take advice, but having done that, it's our job to make decisions and to move things forward. Everyone will be able to have their say on the different routes and options and whether it should be bus rapid transit or light rail to help get mass rapid transit moving in Wellington. I'm also looking forward to the city streets work starting shortly, as I'm sure that everyone is. So thank you again everyone for your focus and your dedication on helping us to achieve Wellington's potential and help it become the great harbour city that it is and the even greater one that it can be. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tau katoa.
Kia ora, Minister. Digging the kite action to your right there in your home office. If you're a listener to the station that I work for, where I have my day job, if you forgive the oxymoron there, you'll know that RNZ National has been actively working to increase the reo content on air. You'll probably know not everyone is happy about that. Some speakers of reo may struggle with our struggles with pronunciation. Others may struggle with the use of lingo other than English. However, it's here to stay. It's not going away because the influence of iwi isn't going to go away. It's going to grow, and so it should. I'd like to invite to the rostrum for his thoughts on where iwi stand, specifically Taranaki Whānui. Pukitapu.
Tēnā anō tātou te whānau. Auranga tira mā e te tūru Darren, e te mea Andy, e te minita me kaere rākau, tēnā koutou katoa. We're excited because in the 5 years that Let's Get Wellington Moving has been going, we're finally at the table, albeit a bit late, but that's okay. We're there. So we thank you. We thank you because through this platform we'll have the opportunity to express our right to define who we are. Further to that, it's also going to give us the platform to have the opportunity to express our right to decide things that are important to us. We're also going to have the opportunity to express our right to develop how we think we should be developing within our kaupapa and our tikanga. We're also excited because it's going to give us the opportunity to express our right to protect what we believe is our rights and our histories and our heritage as the First Nations, Indigenous people of these lands. Finally, it's going to give us the platform to have the opportunity to express our right to participate. So those are the 5 things that are quite important to us: to define, to decide, to develop, to protect and participate. We're also overjoyed and excited with the forthcoming RMA reforms. So e tino mi nui ki te tima e kia nei ko te kau mārima, first 15. Our first 15 Labour MPs in Parliament, especially our rangatira Nanaia Mahuta, for getting us over the line in terms of the RMA reforms. So we're very excited. For 20 years, I've been involved with central and local government. And in those 20 years, we've had to adhere to 3 words that, quite frankly, we were never excited about. Those 3 words are taken into account. To be blunt, that doesn't mean a hell of a lot to us. So with the RMA forms, again, we're excited to see those 3 words taken into account, be consigned to the rubbish bin. And the 3 words that is like my favourite song now: give effect to. So first and foremost, we're here to celebrate the fact that finally Te Tiriti will be given effect to. And that's really all we can talk about at this stage, because there's a lot of work in front of us. We've enjoyed the last year working with the Let's Get Wellington Moving crew. Big shout out to you, Seb Bishop. I believe he's in line for promotion. We'll talk about that later, Seb. So yeah, just really, really excited about the future. And I don't want to stand here for too long because there's a lot of other people that need to talk. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kia ora hui mai, mai tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Ray.
Kia ora, Hea. And now to the plans in detail. Let's start with the Let's Get Welly Moving bid and the options it's announced for public transport between the central city and its southern and eastern suburbs. Why the focus on these in particular? Here's a bit of historical context, as Michael Wood was alluding to. Back when this century was in its early teenage years, what was then Waka Kotohi, and you too, possibly, was noting a bottleneck at peak traffic times around the country's finest cricket ground inside a roundabout, known as the Basin Reserve. Waka Kotahi wanted to fix the bottleneck by building a flyover at the basin to separate north-south traffic from traffic going east-west. But in 2014, a panel of judges in a planning hearing said no. In 2015, the High Court backed that ruling up. To a large degree, Let's Get Welly Moving is an attempt to address that problem at the basin in a way that will stand up to legal scrutiny and has public support. It did a lot of consulting. A lot of people took part. Many said, how about we don't put all our travel in the private vehicle basket? How about public transport? How about walking or cycling? In 2019, Let's Get Welly Moving, with a joint operation involving central and local government, put out some initial ideas. Then there was some response from people saying, well, what about those who want to drive? Where's the extra tunnel? We're stuck in traffic. Can we have a solution that satisfies both camps? Should we even try? Today, it's putting out for comment options for public transport to the Island Bay, Newton, Miramar area. But Let's Get Wellington Moving is also talking about proposals for a new traffic layout at the Basin Reserve and a possible new tunnel and priority bus lanes under Mount Victoria. Here to outline those plans is David Dunlop, the Acting Program Director at Let's Get Wellington Moving. 20 years he's been a transport planner and project director both in the UK and here in New Zealand. Will this be his finest hour? Please welcome David Dunlop.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you everyone for having me here today. I'm a passionate Wellingtonian. I want to see a difference. I want to see change, okay? So what I'm going to talk to you about today is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see that change. So we'll start off with a summary video that'll just encapsulate what we're trying to get across. So if we can...
Wellington is saying hello to a brighter future. A future that will be welcoming more people. So we're going to need more places to live. And greener, smoother ways of getting around with fewer vehicles. This means we'll be saying hello to safer walkways and bike paths. Hello to improved buses, a refurbished Basin Reserve, and a new Mount Victoria tunnel. And hello to a new mass rapid transit system. We're looking at two options, light rail and bus rapid transit. Along with being roomier and more regular, they'll combine with district plan changes to unlock much needed housing in Welly. So we're ready for tomorrow. We're also looking at big changes to two routes. A southern suburbs route from the railway station with big potential for housing. Or an eastern suburbs route through Mount Victoria. An important connection, but with less potential for housing. Together, we've got big calls to make about how we get around and what it means for the city you love. Help us decide the way forward. Say hello and have your say on Wellington's mass rapid transit future.
Okay, so that really excites me and I hope you're sharing that excitement. Okay, so we really want more places to live. As you've heard already from the speakers tonight, this is about transformational change, okay? And we're going to touch on some of the key aspects I'm going to run through extremely quickly. This could take me hours. I could talk for hours about these options. However, I'm going to blast through them pretty quickly. So if we jump to the next slide, I'm just going to talk you through now the engagement process and where we're at. This is a complex project. It's a significant investment. We have a whole raft of components to this program. And as you can see, we're in this investigation phase. This investigation phase, we're talking to the public, we want your feedback, and then we'll go through into more detailed investigation where we'll start talking about things like property impacts and the likes. However, at this point, we're here to talk to you about the programs in their entirety. Next slide. In terms of what these programs are made up of, Mass Rapid Transit is the cornerstone of the program. It's the thing that is transformational. It's going to offer the greatest opportunity in terms of urban development associated with it. We've also got information about the Basin Reserve and the Mount Victoria Tunnel. Now, these components are important, and however, we do need to understand the mass rapid transit mode and the route before we can actually lock down the detail around that. In terms of the phases and where we're at with that, obviously, we want your feedback on these four options. However, we also want to make sure that we get back to you with information and how that feedback has actually influenced the decision-making process. So we will do that early in the new year, in 2022, and then we will move into a much-anticipated decision in May 2022. How you get that information? You can go online. There's lots of means in which to get information about what we're doing on this program. You can go online. You can come to one of our open days. You can come to, we've got a series of online events that are being held. We've also working closely with Wellington City Council in our city tomorrow. So every event that they're holding, we'll be there, and likewise, vice versa. So now I'm going to talk you through the key components of this program. Okay, so the Mass Rapid Transit is all about transformational change. The first option we're going to talk to you about is light rail. Okay, light rail, these vehicles, they're like nothing else we've seen in New Zealand. They're new, they're shiny, and they allow us to move large numbers of people, as well as creating a transformational change to the areas in which they travel through. This is just an example of what the light rail might look like at the hospital. Obviously, level boarding, fast and efficient movement on and off the light rail facility. As you can see, the stops are not like any normal bus stop. They are completely different. They're regenerational. I'll just now move on to Bus Rapid Transit. Here we go. So this is an example of what a Bus Rapid Transit facility will look like. So again, nothing else like this in New Zealand. You know, we see some places such as Auckland, we see bendy buses. However, as you can see from this vehicle, it is high-tech, it is electric, and it will allow level boarding on and off the Bus Rapid Transit. Now I'm just going to touch on some actual urban development outcomes associated with the Mass Rapid Transit. So this is an example of what we're experiencing today in terms of, this is enhanced bus services, okay? Ultimately, we are getting redevelopment and we are getting regeneration. However, it isn't transformational, okay? Next slide talks about a Bus Rapid Transit system. As you can see, we've got a lot more density. We've got a lot more spaces in which for people to enjoy. It's all about creating a better environment in which to live, work and play. And then finally, we're talking about a light rail solution. A light rail solution will really enhance and provide a real opportunity for those people that live, work and play in these areas. And you know, this might not be along the entire route, however, it will be at key nodes and key precincts along the route. Now I'm going to get into the options. I'm going to run through these really quickly, okay? Because like I said before, I could talk at length to each of these options, and you've got the information in the packs that have been left at the tables. Firstly, option one is all about a light rail service that runs all the way from the railway station right through along the quays, past Te Papa, past the new convention centre, and down Kent and Cambridge Terrace. So once we've got up Kent and Cambridge Terrace, ultimately the light rail will pass through the Basin Reserve, at which point the Aris Tunnel will be extended and the light rail will run over Sussex Street. Okay, so that ultimately means there's a separation between the state highway traffic and the local road traffic. And then the light rail will continue through along Adelaide Road right through to Newtown, at which point the light rail will then mix with the general traffic, as well as cyclists and other modes, all the way through to Island Bay to create that north-south public transport corridor. It's really important to remember that between Newtown and the railway station, there will be a dedicated space. That dedicated space will be all about ensuring that light rail has right-of-way and only other users will be public transport users. To the east, what will be created at the Basin Reserve is a new tunnel. There are a number of different options we're considering here, and we don't have all the answers at this point in time. However, what we do have is a number of solutions, including the option that's up there, which is a diagonal tunnel. That diagonal tunnel will mean one lane of general traffic and one lane of public transport in either direction, as well as allowing the ability to convert the existing tunnel, Mount Victoria Tunnel, to a shared walking and cycling facility. This is really important in terms of accessibility from Haitaitai. Beyond that tunnel, in Wellington Road, it will then flow through on dedicated lanes, the public transport, through Kilburnie, right through to Miramar, as well as linking through to the airport. Under option 1, this is an enhanced bus service. It's not a mass rapid transit service. That brings me on to option 2. Option 2 is a BRT system. Okay, so from a north-south direction, through from the railway station right through to Island Bay is exactly the same as the light rail that I explained earlier. The only difference is that it's bus rapid transit. The other difference is once you get down to Island Bay itself in Berhampore, it does not provide the same level of urban development uplift. Okay, and that's really due to the capacity of the service and also the certainty and the quality of the corridor itself. To the east, again, this provides a high-quality mass rapid transit service to the east, right through to the airport. So this is most like the option that was originally talked about in terms of the indicative package that was announced a couple of years ago, where we actually had a mass rapid transit service right through to the airport, to the railway station. Everything else stays exactly the same as option 1. For option 3, the key difference here is what happens to the east. So as you can see from the diagram, option 1 had a light rail service all the way from the railway station right through to Island Bay. That is replicated in option 3. However, when it comes to going to the east, what we create is a separate walking and cycling tunnel through Mount Victoria. Okay, so we no longer have public transport or a replacement vehicle lanes. Ultimately, we retain the existing Mount Victoria tunnel, and for public transport, we rely on them running through Mount Victoria, through Haitaitai, into Kilburnie, and once we get to Wellington Road, they will be on a dedicated space. So it will be improved, it will be better, however, it certainly won't be transformational to the east. As for option 4, again, this is very similar to option 3. The key difference is that we have a different solution at the Basin Reserve and also the routing, okay? So when the light rail runs along the quays, what it will do is turn up at Taranaki Street, and it'll run through to Haining Street. It will then divert round into Tasman Street, run over the existing Aris Tunnel and utilise that existing tunnel that is there now. And then it'll skirt around the south side of the Basin Reserve and rejoin Adelaide Road. And then beyond that point, it will continue through to Island Bay in much the same way as options 1 and 3. To the east is exactly the same as I've explained for option 3, so no different. Okay, now I'm just going to share some images of what the options might look like. This is an example of what the Basin Reserve might look like. Now this is significant, okay? So this option that we've got here is showing a bus rapid transit system, but however, light rail is exactly the same in terms of how it might look and how it might operate. But really what's important here is to see what is happening. So the roundabout is no longer. Ultimately, the traffic flow, which is the state highway traffic, comes around the north side of the Basin Reserve and goes into what is the extended Aris Tunnel. Anyone coming to the CBD and going down Kent Cambridge Terrace would come off, as they come out of the roundabout, out of the tunnel, would come off and head off into the CBD that way. In terms of walking and cycling, again, much better facilities through an extension of that Aris Tunnel. This is a view from the other side of the road, looking back towards the west. Okay, so when you come out of the Mount Victoria Tunnel, this is what you would see. Ultimately, you would see a very open environment, something that was obviously a concern with the previous basin project. What you'll retain is access for walking and cycling, which will cross the state highway at that point. However, it will be a continuation through. Just move to the next slide. Oh, it started moving. I went too far. Okay, in terms of what that Mount Victoria Tunnel might look like, this is just an example of what it might look like. So this is the existing tunnel, as you probably all know it, and what you can see is a really exciting and attractive environment in which to walk and cycle, as well as using things like mobility scooters and the likes, and micro-mobility. Okay, so how do all these options compare? So I'm just going to talk through a few key statistics. Now, these are headline acts, and I think you might have already picked up that both option 1, 3, and 4 all provide a significant amount of urban development potential. Okay, so it's up to 21,000 dwellings. That's massive, as we've heard tonight. That can accommodate upwards of 30,000 people, and that's a significant proportion of what we need for Wellington. As for option 2, it's slightly less. However, it's still significant, and it would still fulfil us for the next 30 years, assuming we don't really get out there and facilitate development. All of these options provide significant carbon benefits, and they also provide significant journey time savings for public transport. As you can see, some of those numbers of 12 and 14 minutes, these are massive savings, and they're really, really important in terms of getting outcomes and what we want from the program. I have noted up there that there is some journey time saving associated with the vehicle journey, and that's just for options 1 and 2. Options 3 and 4, there is little or no journey time saving. However, what is important is that mass rapid transit provides an alternative, okay? So what that means is that those trips that really need to happen on the actual transport network actually can happen because people get on the mass rapid transit because it's so efficient, so reliable that they actually choose to use mass rapid transit. That makes sure that the actual vehicle trips that happen on the network can happen for those people that want to travel, say from the region, from the Wairarapa, right through and travel to the airport or to the hospital. They can do it without the same level of congestion and delay that they're encountering at the moment. The other point I want to highlight up here is the range of costs. So the costs range right through from 7.4 billion for option 1, right through to 5.8 for option 4. And that includes the total cost for the program. It's not just the options that I've talked about here. It also includes the city streets, it includes the 3-year program, the travel demand management in its entirety. The final slide I want to run through with you now is this component of a smarter transport network and a smarter choices. So this is linked to travel behaviour change, okay? So a really important part of travel behaviour change is having alternatives. So we've got to make sure the alternatives are good, and that includes the cycling and the mass rapid transit associated with it, as well as all the wider PT improvements that the program is providing. So these behaviour change options include things like softer measures we talk about, which are things like school travel plans, work travel plans, and those sort of things, right through to much harder mechanisms which involve pricing. And that's pricing in terms of congestion charging or parking levy. Now, these things have really big impacts, both in terms of the outcomes we can achieve from them, but all of these options are significantly enhanced by such mechanisms, which is a great outcome for Wellington. It means that those people that, again, really want to get to where they need to get to whether they're servicing, whether they have disability needs or whatever, can actually use the network and it's much less constrained. Okay, so in terms of the way forward, this is my final slide, and I really just want to highlight to you that there are significant components to this program. It's not just about the transformational program that I talked about earlier. We're also talking about the 3-year program. The 3-year program is the stuff that we've made some big decisions on. We've made some really good leaps and bounds forward. You will have heard last week, we made a decision on the Golden Mile. That business case process is finished. We're now into detailed design. That means that we're getting on and we're going to start constructing things. First of the construction will happen at a few of the intersections around the city, and then we'll roll out the rest of that 3-year program over the next 3 years, obviously. The City Streets program is, again, a rolling program of 19 corridors around the city. And that's not just the ones to the south and to the east. We're talking about the west and the north. So those people that are outside the core zone of the mass rapid transit can also benefit from the program. The key thing with these two projects and programs is that they provide the basis in which to allow us to go ahead and implement the transformational program. So it gives people choices before we start the major impact of delivering significantly big, large projects in Wellington. I guess in terms of the transformational program, I'd just like to point to you that you know, it's a complex process. This is a significant investment and it will take time. In the detailed design phase, what we'll be doing is going through a consenting process. And again, as you're all aware, that doesn't happen overnight. And we've got to get it right. So we've got to do the right thing. Ensure we deliver the right outcomes for all of us in Wellington. Thank you very much.
More Poneki is the rule book for what we build, where, how high, for how many. It outlines how we intend to build in the way which prepares us for sudden change, the ground shaking, the ground flooding, or slower change in the event of climate change or sea level rise from climate change. It even hopes to address our attempts to do our share in the global effort to prevent climate change becoming too sudden and severe, setting up a city that relies less on fossil fuels, either by going electric or reducing the need to travel so much or so far because of increased urban density, or safer pathways mean we don't have to drive everywhere. We can walk or skate or scoot or cycle. This plan comes at a time of increased anxiety over the price of property and homelessness. Poneki's Chief Planning Officer is Liam Hodgetts. He's planned for New Plymouth, for Melbourne, and here he is in Te Whanganui Atara. Please welcome, with details of the city's draft spatial plan, Liam Hodgetts.
Kia ora tātou. E te mana whenua, ko te iwi o te awa, taranaki whānui koutou. Ko Ngāti Toa hoki, tēnā koutou. Ko iri atu iwi o te Whanganui Atara, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia koutou te kuanihira o Poneki, kia ora. Ko Liam Hodgetts, taku whenua. So, as Chief Planning Officer, I've got the opportunity to sweep up behind the previous presenters, provide a little bit more context, and hopefully pave the way for a great Q&A session. I've jotted down some notes. I've been told to stage a script, so I will. And I'm hoping we can add some layers of detail for you all. So most cities around the world are in a constant state of change. This has been particularly so over the last 40 years as the global population continues to urbanise. The OECD's Cities of the World report indicates that the populations of most cities have more than doubled over this time, and interestingly, growing in density, but not necessarily in size. It's just been over a year since I stepped into the role of Chief Planning Officer at Wellington City Council, and what was immediately obvious to me was the city was experiencing a period of change that was truly going to be transformational. And this was led by a very ambitious council willing to take on some really big issues. Central to that was planning for growth, a multi-year program of fully reviewing and adopting the new district plan for the city. This work started in 2017, when post the Kaikoura earthquakes, we started asking some fundamental questions about the direction of the city and the region. Questions about our city tomorrow. We identified three main drivers: the size of challenges, climate change and sea level rise, and a growing population. So our earth was moving, the sea was rising, and our population was growing. 4 years on, and in June this year, after many rounds of public consultation, the Council adopted a new spatial plan, one which tackles these challenges. A blueprint for the city over 30 years, the spatial plan focuses on realising a more compact, resilient, greener and connected Wellington. It prioritises development in the central city and inner suburbs and on key public transport routes. And tomorrow we begin consultation on this blueprint's rulebook. the draft district plan. I'm going to run through some headlines for you there. The draft district plan proposes quite significant changes for the city. It's a 30-fold increase in areas zoned for medium density. It provides capacity for 25 to 30,000 additional dwellings across the city. It doubles the population of the central city from 18,000 to 36,000 people. It raises the profile of mana whenua and the role they play today and in the city's future. It increases the protection of the city's Indigenous biodiversity, and there's a complete revision and update on how we manage the city's natural hazard risks, which are many, and how those risks are going to be managed will relate to how well we plan urban development. Overall, this district plan represents a significant shift in how we develop Wellington. Its digital platform has been enhanced for better accessibility, and it has been developed, of course, alongside Let's Get Wellington Moving. It's helped inform the city's broader long-term infrastructure investment program, and it's an integrated plan, critical for the social, cultural, and economic and environmental well-being of the city and its people. Andy talked about 3 pillars, and today I'm talking to you about 2. The second one, the bike network plan. While we live and how we accommodate population growth is fundamental to this plan, how we move around it through the road network, the arteries of the city, is just as important. And that's why Pāniki Pauniki, our citywide bike network plan, has also been consulted on. This plan seeks to make it easier and safer for people of all ages to get to work, to school, to friends, and to shops. It creates a network of safer routes in tandem with massive public transport investments, and will result, no doubt, in a more connected and greener city. The route itself, as it's been mentioned, is 147 kilometres of primary and secondary arterial bike routes. That's building on a measly 24 kilometres we have today. This network will sit alongside Let's Get Wellington Moving and the announcement made today. There's no question that this is an integrated plan, it's a connected plan, and it's been done by Team Wellington. So to close out and to finish on Andy's 3 pillars, in a very profound and positive way, this is going to change Wellington. How the people of Wellington experience the city will be impacted by these plans. This is an opportunity to rebalance the city, to reprogram it, and to meet those future challenges. Yesterday, on the eve of COP26, the Prime Minister and Minister Shaw increased New Zealand's climate pledge to cut emissions from 39% to 50% by 2030. Climate change is here, and we need to respond fast. Just as sobering, Wellington has a housing affordability crisis, and we need to respond fast. Our biggest opportunity to respond to these challenges is through changing up our transport infrastructure and increasing the density of our urban areas. No question. Which is why today's combined announcement is so exciting for a planner. We're unlikely to see this opportunity again. I think Dave mentioned this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that's why it's so important that as we rewrite the planning rulebook for the city, the rulebook that facilitates its growth and prosperity, that the community participate, listen, and give their feedback. So these pillars of change will be challenging and confronting. They always are. A planner knows that very well. And to quote Jeanette Siddiq Khan, the former Transportation Commissioner in New York City, I've had the pleasure of meeting her, who drove a truly transformative change in that city. When you push the status quo, it pushes back hard. So get ready. Over the next 6 weeks, we are asking you all to help shape and participate in the future of Wellington, and I encourage you to jump online, head to an appropriately socially distanced event, or tune on the webinar and have your say. It's really, really important. Ka pai, and ngā mihi nui, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora, Liam. We have now moved to the fun part, panel discussion. So along with Liam, I'd like to invite up on stage Andy Foster and Darren Ponta. Also coming up, Dave Brash, who is the independent chair of Let's Get Wellington Moving. the background in local government in Kaikoura, Whakatane, quakes and floods. He's also worked with Waka Kotahi as Manager of Investment Planning, and before that the Ministry of Environment. And also here we have Emma Spate representing Waka Kotahi. She's the Director of Regional Relationships for the part of Aotearoa, mā te Waipounamu, which includes Poneke, Wellington. We also have representing Ngāti Toa. We have Helmut, and I'm sorry, Helmut, I'll get to just find Modlik. Helmut Modlik, kia ora. Sorry, I didn't see you sneak up behind me. And hi is there as well. Right, well, I'm going to throw a question your way first off, and then I'm going to leave it to Slido, because I'm sure we're going to get plenty from them. And how much time we got? Till 7:45. So we've got around about 40 minutes. And that is, and I hate to be somebody who throws a bit of pessimism into the discussion, but I think we've got to deal with that. And that is with Let's Get Willie Moving. We haven't discussed the massive investment in roads to this city's north. Massive investment. We're talking about the Kapiti Expressway, we're talking about Transmission Gully, and after that there will be an expressway all the way to Levin, which will enable us a lot of new development. Car-dependent development most likely. Some of it might not be, some of it will. And it's going to want to come into town. And how does what we're doing here in Wellington address the needs of those people who also call Wellington the centre of their region? How does Let's Get Willie Moving address that? I also notice that nobody up there from the Wellington Chamber of Commerce or the AA in this panel. That doesn't mean you can't answer the question. Who's going to go first?
I think that's me.
G'day, Emma.
Thank you. Look, we have been absolutely looking at this as a regional transport system, and the key thing here is, yes, we are building some fantastic, safe, reliable networks to the north of the city, but we're also very much focused on ensuring that our public transport is also good to the north. So we are investing in rail and increasing the capacity and the carriages and the facilities that we have on rail. Because actually what we want to see is that wherever possible, we're enabling good, safe public transport to connect people to Wellington, so that the people who do need to use our road network, so there's freight and there's journeys that cannot be taken on public transport, are also connected in. So we are looking at the full range of options, but the Let's Get Wellington Moving is really about how we enhance the CBD and all the connections into the CBD so that the city can transform and function really, really well for the next 30 to 50 years.
Thanks, Emma. Who else would like to answer that?
I'll have a go as well.
Go, Andy.
Hopefully, can you hear through the mask? Yes, it's great speaking this way. Look, this is one that's a lot of challenges in, because it was quite obvious that building a lot of roads to the north was going to encourage more people to go and live out there, and that's exactly what we've been seeing actually over quite some period of time. COVID's thrown a curveball in terms of the central city, because what we're seeing is a lot more people who are actually choosing to or having to work from home, and that's caused about a 20% reduction, or in the high teens anyway, of the people of footfall in the central city. And one of the things we need to make sure that as we do all these things is we make sure the central city stays strong and vibrant. If we don't do that, we've got a problem, not just as a city but as a region. So it's trying to get that balance between all of those things. Now, the reality is that the more people who are further flung, especially if they are wanting to come into the central city, they are much more likely to come by car than they are. The big, good rail system will encourage some. I can remember that going back a couple of censuses, that when you looked at the number of people from Kapiti who walked to work, it was 4%. Those in the central city, it was in the 80s. So urban form absolutely counts. The more we spread out, the more carbon dependent we are going to be. And so that's a fundamental challenge for us, not just as a region, but also as a nation, as to how we work our way through that. And I think that's one of the bits as we get to our regional growth planning, of actually deciding where the growth should best go. And when I looked at all these greenfields bits popping up all over the rest of the region, I thought it's going to be very hard to align that with a low carbon region. So it's a real challenge. and it's one we've got to work through together.
Anyone else? You look like you're poised, Dave. Yes, the mask is coming off.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Kia ora tātou. So I think that Andy's put this finger on it, really. The city, if it's going to be successful and vibrant, has to be the magnet. Because it's always going to be a competition between people, price, whatever that drives that, the whole cost of living out in the burbs versus in the city. And if we can lower those costs with intensification and lower the carbon footprint as a result, then that's the success, that's the transformation we're looking for.
Anyone else want to comment on that question?
Can I just throw one more thing in, if I can? And that's it, what we've learned from COVID is that we cannot, as a city, rely on people coming in. We can't demand that they come in because clearly they can choose not to come in now, and people have worked that out. So just picking up on Dave's comment, we have to absolutely make sure that our city and our major suburban centres are places people choose to go, they want to go because they love being there. And that's a fundamental part that's also connected with this, and that goes back to that thing, I think, Isabella, you said it at the beginning, about a livable city that people really, really want to come in. The other bit is one of those funding tools, we've got to be really careful about how we manage that. I'm a real fan of congestion pricing and long stay parking levies. We've got to try and work out what the right level is so that it helps us fund things, it helps behaviour management, but it doesn't turn people off and send them all in other directions. So there's going to be real balance, and the answer today might not be the answer tomorrow, might be not, it might change over time. So it's going to have to be something that's just potentially reset over time.
Helmut, I sensed a movement when the words congestion and pricing were mentioned at the same time. And that's the response from you?
Yeah, no, that was entertaining, but other than that, I was actually thinking about this is rather strange talking like this, but anyway, I was just thinking about the reality for the tangata whenua of Te Whanganui Aotearoa, and, with greatest of respect, while some will want to live in the city, we rather live at home. Now our marae and our kāinga, and what that means. But there are, of course, a lot of Maori people live in Te Pokotika that aren't Ngāti Toa and Taranaki Whanui, Te Aotearoa. And however, it is and will probably remain so for my lifetime a priority to support them in their various life journeys of moving to well-being and prosperity. And I was just wondering about what that looked like under this go forward. I think my view is that the thinking and the essential principles guiding everyone are encouraging and very sound. That was all I was thinking of there.
There's a question up there that's getting a lot of, how can we make this happen faster? I mean, I noticed the timeline for construction of some of those major LGW moving projects was the end of this decade. Seems a long time away. 2028. Can we make it happen any faster than that?
Yeah, so we've started having that conversation, myself, Andy, and the Minister, about how we bring the timelines for construction forward, especially on the big rocks. Many of the other smaller things that have already been identified, not so small in fact, there's more than $1.5 billion worth of investment in the City Streets package and Golden Mile and what have you. Will all happen in the next, start happening in the next 3 years, 4 years. But this isn't until 2028, and I think we can do more work to bring that forward a bit.
How, Darren?
Well, it's a discussion between the three entities, and it's about our balance sheets, and we have to come back to you as ratepayers and as taxpayers and ask whether you're willing to actually bring that forward, take money in outer years and put it in earlier years, and take a rates increase, but also use some of the congestion charging we may have in the future.
Dave, do you want to respond?
Ask off. Yeah, well, I'm an impatient man at the best of times. So the timeline does worry me, but I've also been in the public sector way too long, and so I'm not going to overpromise and then underdeliver on that. This is a huge, huge project. Nothing, as Dave said earlier, Wellington hasn't seen anything like this, so we need to make sure we work through it thoroughly. in the last couple of years, we've, or even further, if we go back to the flyover, we've had a number of false starts because people haven't worked through these issues properly. So we're determined to do this thoroughly and progressively work our way through it. Now, I'll be the first one to try and find some ways to make it go faster, but you've got to remember that in the first place.
Maybe, Emma, you can respond to that?
There's the early projects, that 3-year program in the city streets are really important and will be significant. So it's not that nothing is happening. And those projects are actually timed because we need to really make sure our corridors into and through the CBD are really good and strong and resilient and enable people to move in a reliable way. So that's actually really important, and the whole city will see benefit from that program in a shorter time frame than these big projects. But I would echo what Dave is saying, and we need to get these right. They are massive investments that fundamentally change the way we live and the way we move in Wellington. And that's a big challenge. It's a lot for everyone to gear up and respond to. And yes, we can move some things faster. We can look at how we design and contract to construct. We can look at things that we do that move things faster. But along the way, we also need to make sure that we look after our environment, that we reflect how the city and the people living here want to grow and change. So it is a big challenge. It is a massive investment. It is a very, very transformational program. And we don't go into that expecting it just to tick along and take a year to design and a few years to build. It's very much a measure twice, cut once scenario. So we need to get it right. We need to get it consented and approved in a really high quality way, and then we need to build it with a great team, which we're really confident we can get.
Does anybody else wish to comment on that question?
Yeah, I just want to say something. The thought that came to my mind when I saw the question was the significant potential of things being slowed down by unnecessary, dealing with unnecessary and intractable complaints and delays and fragmentation and sectoral interests, and now we're grumpy we didn't get our way, so using all the means of appeal. So that's a two-way street though. So what that means from my point of view is that every opportunity is given to stakeholders and ratepayers and everybody else to offer up their views, but it's incumbent on the leadership that's involved to listen and to really apply collectively ourselves to the best response we can deduce. And then once people have had their say and there's been a fair hearing and good response, then we just got to crack on. But that was the thought that came to my mind, is to get to a landing of a unified position for progress.
There's a question up there from Oliver. There's actually a couple, aren't there? Oliver, you're doing well on the popularity stakes. I think he's here in the auditorium. Has there been any analysis of the explosive growth of e-bikes and scooters, and how did that impact on the expected demand for cycleway plans? And then he adds, what about plans to capture the uplift in land value along the mass rapid transit corridors? And if so, how has that been quantified? No, who's... That's the wonky one, the policy wonky one. Should we go with the impact of the growth in e-bikes and scooters in terms of your capacity for cycleways and what you projected? Dave, I'm looking at you.
I think I'll have a go.
You want to go on that one?
I'll have a go at the both, but I think I'm mic'd up as well. Yeah, fancy, huh?
As long as we can hear you, Liam, it's fine.
Yeah, and you can, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
They can. Can you hear Liam? Good.
Excellent. Look, I think absolutely it's been astronomical, the growth in e-bikes and the mobility that it's offered to the population. We're seeing it in our counters on our streets every day. It's not tenfold, but it's at least 8 or 9. It's ridiculously quick. And if everyone's trying to buy an e-bike out there, it's almost impossible, right? So yes, it has been, I think, Let's Get Wellington Moving certainly is looking at some of the data we collect as a city. So it's all part of the equation, and the great thing about the Internet of Things is that we're counting these these clicks every day, and we're seeing the growth over time. So it's real-time data. The second point regarding urban development is, and yes, the program and the city are working quite closely with the central government on what that capture uplift of land value looks like, and how that indeed may help to fund, obviously, the investment over time. But I think in my experience, particularly in Australia, across the states of Australia, you'll always see transformational city projects be coupled with an urban development entity that organises and passes up the land to support the delivery of the infrastructure. So I think it's highly likely some sort of vessel will be created to ensure that occurs. But let's wait and see and get through this consultation.
So the idea is that along the corridors where mass transit runs, property values will go up. There'll be more density, and there's a way you want to be able to capture some of that?
Yeah, that's the theory. So I think the figure at the moment in the draft district plan is along the MRT corridor itself, it's 11,000 with no corridor in our current draft district plan settings, but we're doubling that. So what does that look like in value capture, and how do we ensure that it's well planned, the edges to the environment that we create in terms of the transport corridor? How does it feel and look for the community we're going to build there? I mean, we're talking, a suburb of Miramar plonked on top of that corridor pretty much overnight when that's agreed. Well, yeah, over time.
Does that mean the poor buggers along the corridor have got to pay more rates?
Well, I think that financial mechanism, the point of this is
That's the tabloid journalist in me, right?
Yeah. I think the capture element relates to, I mean, there's lots of different ways to package up urban development along transport corridors, and it's not just about tax.
I think, Brian, just further to that, obviously if there is more development and the actual value of the property goes up, then the rates will go up accordingly. However, one of the things we've got to be just a little bit careful of, and particularly that's true because of the most recent government announcements, which essentially up the ability to develop right across the entire outer residential area. That obviously gives you more housing. However, it could well draw people away from developing in the mass transit areas. That is an issue. And of course, if we go too hard on value capture in the area we want to densify, that's another thing which pushes people away from it. So we've got to be really careful about getting that balance right.
Anybody else, Dave?
Yeah.
Away you go.
To just build on that, I mean, just to be clear, in terms of the financing and working out the affordability and the revenue that's going to pay for that, we haven't already banked the value capture, but it's something we're actively pursuing, as Liam said, with Kāinga Ora and the government. But we've just, the funding mechanisms that we're using to date are traditional, and that's a non-traditional one in New Zealand anyway, that we'll look into and see if we can make work.
Just one other thing there, and I think, Liam, you mentioned urban development agencies. So one of the things we are actively looking at is having some way of actually delivering. So our district plan at the moment is predicated on saying let's say we provide 100,000 spaces, that we only expect something between 14 and 24% of those to be taken up over 30 years if we just leave it to the market. So if we actually say we want more development in the corridor to support mass transit, then we've actually got to go in there and push that, as well as actually delivering the mass transit. So we're actually looking actively, and government ministers seem to be really, really responsive to that. So that's essentially a transport and urban development entity of some sort to be able to get both the housing and the support for mass transit.
Thanks, Andy. A question here from Anonymous. Will the new, and I think I could move this question, extend it to all, if we have bus rapid mass transit, whether any of that could be then future-proofed, so if necessary, if demand requires, it can be converted to light rail. This question is just about the Mount Vic Tunnel, but I think you could apply that to any bus rapid transit route, couldn't you, Dave?
Yeah, it can be, and it is future-proofed. You could use, obviously it would cost more money at the time, but particularly if you provide the additional diagonal tunnel that provides that capacity, it could be converted to light rail into the future to the east.
Is that factored into the costings we have and the options outlined? It's not.
Not the cost of the rail, but the making sure that the infrastructure, the work you do on the corridor itself, making sure you're moving all the utilities. That's the same thing you need to do for light rail, so you do it for bus rapid transit. The tunnel, obviously it's going to fit, so all of those things have been looked at.
Another question, will we look at how things can be delivered in a phased approach instead of waiting for everything to be finalised? Who wants to answer that?
I might have a start,
Liam, you
actually.
put your hand up for that one.
We're talking about the heavy, big, exciting infrastructure, but I mean, I just want to acknowledge the City Council's bike network plan. You know, clearly there's a real ambition by this council to move as quickly as possible. And, you know, we've got a transitional program that's looking to trial and pilot bike lanes through our arterial network. We've got one particular one, two. We've got City to Botanic Gardens and City to Newtown underway, and that isn't full build out. This is just trial, bump sticks and paint on the ground, but we're trying to socialise ourselves and understand how fast we can move for the later hard infrastructure to follow behind it. So we're moving as quick as we can, and maybe that's a challenge for our central government colleagues to pick up that as well. But
that does. Oh, Darren.
So I think the issue there is that Emma's already highlighted a phased approach in relation to the bigger programs. Some things are already happening this year and next year. In relation to these projects that are announced today, we can't do it without a phased approach. We just don't have the resources, and we can't commit everything to happen at the same time. So we need to have a good understanding about how it all fits together, but we're ultimately going to have to phase the approach for many of these projects in order to get them done in a sequenced way.
I think the other important thing about working through the CBD is that doing both transport, major transport infrastructure, and doing major housing development both require a lot of access for the construction process. So we need to phase in order to allow that to happen in a way that keeps the city vibrant, functioning, everything else working. So all of those things will be very much a part of the design process of how we think through how those bits work together.
The other thing to say in terms of phasing, I mean, obviously we've got a lot of investment that needs to be made in water infrastructure, or particularly wastewater infrastructure. Clearly you want to get that done before you go and put something over the top of it, because you don't want to go and do that and then rip it all up again. So that phasing. The other thing, of course, is we've got the Golden Mile as a relatively early thing, and I don't know this, but I'm going to assume that it'll be very, very difficult to do the Golden Mile and at the same time do the quays. So you've got to do one before the other. So there's going to be a whole lot of decisions that need to be made about which things go in which order, so we still have a functioning city while we put all these pieces of infrastructure in place.
Again, I don't want to be a prophet of trouble, but then it's kind of my job to be a troubleshooter here. In some of those supposedly easier to attain things of Let's Get Willie moving, and also with the cycling plan, there's something that comes to mind. A problem, a word starts with P, for parking. And concerns about people who believe either that their residential parking is at threat or their business is at threat if you lose the parking outside the business or the home. And this has derailed some of our projects or slowed them down in the past. What's going to allow us to prevail this time?
After you, Eddie.
This is encouraging.
No, look, first admit that, acknowledge that there's parking issues, but they've got to be put into context. Certainly, that we know, for example, that most of the spend that's in the city currently and along the Golden Mile, for example, is not from people driving their cars into town. They're coming in by other means. And we're also committed to work closely with the business community to try and minimise those dimensions so that essential transport like the freight, getting the freight and the goods to the businesses won't be compromised. And there's ways around that, and you can look elsewhere in the world or elsewhere. Well, you can look at Cooper Street in Wellington. It is possible to do this, do it well, and make sure that the business actually thrive and get more out of it in the long term.
I think probably one of the key things, and obviously there are, for example, there are 19 different packages in the city, or 19 different routes in the City Streets program. there are 147 kilometres in the cycleway program, and then you've got mass transit on top of that. So, but we're not going to do it all at once, so we're going to have to work through this bit by bit with each community. And it's not going to be an easy conversation for some communities. Some of them it might be a bit easier. Some routes are easy. I mean, occasionally we hear the joke about no car parks were harmed in the making of the cycleway. That makes it a heck of a lot easier. So Cobham Drive relatively easy. Some others more difficult. We're going through the process right now of submissions on, in fact they are this week, submissions on the Evans Bay link between Cobham Drive and Point Jerningham, part of the cycleway network. So I don't think anybody's going to pretend that this is going to be an easy conversation. I think the one thing though is that what we're going to try and do as much as we can, I said that we'd take a whole of streets approach here, so that we don't go and say let's do the cycleway, then let's do the busway, or the other way around. That we actually go and take the whole lot all in one go. And so, you know, it's not just people against bikes or people against buses. You've got to actually have that whole wider conversation, and you deal with the street amenity issues as well, and some urban makeover issues. And there's going to have to be some clever responses in some cases, particularly with the central city. We're going to have to be talking very, very carefully with businesses so that they have some comfort around making sure that they can be properly serviced, properly accessed. And, you know, and there's always off-street parking that's, you know, that's part of the mix there. I think for business, the potential for long-stay parking levy may be part of the answer there. So it's about that potentially favours short-stay parking from the private operators as opposed to long-stay parking, which is, of course, and it's the short stay we want.
Helmut.
Yeah, what that question reminded me of was, I think Henry Ford said if I'd have asked the people what they wanted, they'd have asked for faster horses. Point being is that we're looking to make a paradigm shift here. And, you know, what was that quote about status quo? Pushing it is hard? Yeah, that. So where my mind goes with that, though, is the process of engagement, information sharing, debate, and discussion. You know, so what is it that we really want? Now, really. And have that conversation, because this is an intergenerational conversation. By definition, that requires our biggest perspective, our biggest, attempt at being wise and trying to remove the otherwise bounded parameters that we place on our thinking. So when people start talking about narrow current state status quo initiatives, so kia ora for that. Now just imagine this, and where my mind goes lastly on that was I spent nearly 15, 20 years trying to talk doctors into engaging with patients remotely, you know, through remote means. It's like pulling teeth. You know, then we get COVID, everybody does it, you know. So paradigm shifts are possible. It doesn't require a pandemic, but definitely it'll require us to think big thoughts and engage and be perhaps a bit bold. Kia ora.
Yeah, so it's a partnership, and that means we're going to have an interesting conversation about parking. From a regional council perspective, public transport comes before parking every time, and I suppose that's one thing on which the regional council is probably more zealot-like than anything. That if we have to get our buses through, we've got to get these fancy light rail vehicles through, bendy buses, etc. Car parks for whole streets may just have to be moved, and that's the reality of what transformation means to some extent.
Kia ora, Darren. Helmut's remarks have reminded me of the question at the top now. What's been done to hear from those who don't usually submit on these proposals, especially young people, renters? I might add into that one perhaps Māori as well, people who can't afford to live in Wellington.
Yeah, look, from the City Council's point of view and the draft district plan, we've got a really comprehensive way of engaging with not only renters but people who wouldn't normally at all interact with something as dry as a district plan. It's easy to say, but it's very, very hard to do. So we've coupled up with a couple of experts in the field who are helping us to do that, and that's the buzzword is focus groups, but they're a lot more than that. They're different ways of communicating with at different levels to the person that we're trying to get feedback from. And we're really excited about that. It's quite a new piece of work, and the council has been briefed on it. We're looking to see and hope that it will, be fruitful, and we're excited to see what it's going to throw up, actually, because we traditionally hear from the very noisy few, not the very silent majority.
Maslow's hierarchy comes to mind on that question, Hua. I think every attempt that can be made, as is currently going on, in trying to engage our priority populations from a deprivation point of view and from other perspectives around the COVID vaccination corridor, we know we're seeing how hard that is to get engagement, get traction, even when it's life and death. Think about that. So, talking about this, kia ora for that. So, anyway, notwithstanding that, I think every effort should be made, as is the case, and then those who are connected with those communities, such as ourselves and others that are involved, that's probably about what you're going to get, to just being realistic. But it's a good point, though.
Well, in some of the meetings that we've had in the run-up to this, there were a series of hui last year, and there were some great speakers talking about incorporating a Māori approach to housing, which is more communal. And I don't know from your point of view, Haya, or you, Helmut, whether what you've seen so far of what's been suggested by the draft district plan, that's going to be encouraged in the new regime.
Yeah, the thing with, I was born and raised in Papakoinga. We're communists. And so there's an inherent conflict, I think, with Western capitalism and what we would call Māori communism. I don't know how that's going to work out, because we have a lot of dreams and aspirations for more Papakoinga, but with the current housing market, we're losing grasp of that. So it's quite a fearful future in terms of maintaining our culture and its integrity. Some of our whānau aren't waiting around, and they're building their own Papakoinga in the context of a whānau which will grow. So wherever we don't get support, we're left to our own devices, and we'll just do what we can do. But I take the point, in the city here, it's even more harder. So there's a big question mark there, but there's a lot of, I'm excited about the problem-solving opportunity, however hard it is.
I wouldn't call growing up in Waifetu or Takapuahi communism.
Māori communism.
Yeah, Māori communism. No, look, we grew up how everyone wishes they grew up, if I'm being honest with you. Even if you don't know it, that's the truth. Surrounded by our loved ones as far as the eye could see. Everything that mattered for us was within a stone's throw. It doesn't get better than that. And so when my mind goes around the kōrero, is listen to what's intended in here, is shifted to some of the very cool cooperative housing, collective housing models where actually communities are intentionally being created, people who know each other, and they might not whakapapa to each other like we do intentionally, but that's a pretty cool next thing, rather than the relatively isolated, who the heck is that sort of model which has dominated to date in the cities and other places. So I think that it's quite an enabling thing, and again, it'll come down to the community manifesting its wishes to create communities that reflect our better selves and where we want to go. And so no, I'm optimistic, and I think it's consistent. But make no mistake, Ngāti Toa and Satia, we like to live by our whānau around our marae and all the rest of that, but no, we might have an apartment in town. Just joking.
Just a plug for the draft plan as well. We've been working closely with Ngāti Toa, in particular, just modelling and trialling Papakoinga design guidelines. So, this is the first that we know that the district plan is addressing in New Zealand, actually. So, Ngāti Toa in particular are very active in the housing space, and councillors, looking forward to partnering potentially in the future with them. But from a district planning point of view, and from the input from Mana Whenua, it's been lensing the 70 or so chapters with Te Ao Māori, and I think really successfully. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm really looking forward to seeing those papakainga design guidelines start to show a bit of fruit too.
If I could be provocative, just on that issue, and we're speaking about the uplift in land values, so the model that we're applying consistently, speaking for Ngāti Toa only now, is the reacquisition of our whenua and then placing it in a community land trust to actually ensure the retention of the land, but it also removes it out of the entry cost for those who are looking to own homes on that whenua, and we're putting in place a perpetual, very low perpetual non-ratcheting, leasehold payment, so that's a predictable line of trajectory for those leases. But again, that enables much better affordability. And we're happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk about that. Yeah. I was just thinking about the corridor thing,
Is that in the plan, Liam? Can it be in the plan?
Yeah, I mean, look at the subdivision, the underlying status of the land is irrelevant to the owner, really. I mean, if the owner has a certain requirement to deal with the land the way they want to, then that's their business. But in creating the titles, well, that's all dictated by the district plan, and it's easy enough to do.
The challenge, though, is that typically, of course, the development is a highly profitable for-profit endeavour. So this ain't that.
Yeah.
So it does require a different mindset.
Yeah.
In terms of why you're participating in this. It doesn't have to be, capital diminishing. Your leaseholds need to be covered in the sustainable holding of those whenuas and the capital cost of holding it. But you're not going out there to, make a big capital gain or whatever else is.
I think Helmut's talking about how it's rated.
But anyway,
we can talk.
Well, I'm thinking
Can I just throw one other thing in there, because as a group, and I look around the room, and I think also you've got to recognise that we have a really diverse community in Wellington, and one of the things we've got to make sure is that we reach out to all that diversity, and particularly Rachel, it's good to see you here representing the Multicultural Council, but we need to make sure that we get alongside all of those communities so that they also have some input into the city that they want to live in.
We're actually running short on time now. It's coming up to almost, I think it's just gone past 20 to 8. A couple of things. One is this question which has come through, lots of shared mass transit lanes. What does that look like, and how do we ensure priority stuff gets a clear run? This might be people who remember the bus lanes in London in the early 90s. There were car lanes most of the time. Dave? Yep. You're ready.
That sounds like me. I think, firstly, it's a good question, and what we're looking at is, and Dave Dunlop went through it, where we've got real dedicated lanes over large portions of it, which is trying to address that question, or will address that question. But there is an element of shared running, and there are some other things you can do to minimise the impact on the public transport and to allow that to happen. But it's always a compromise when there's shared running, and you've got other modes in there potentially as well, in terms of cycles and so forth. So it's about trying to manage that. There's some things you can do to try and do that, but as I say, it's not, shared running is not the perfect solution, but in a lot of places where we haven't got the room or haven't got the money to do it, then that's the most practical option. But those who've been to Melbourne and some other cities around the world will know the kind of problems that can cause. We'll do our best to avoid that by having dedicated lanes where we can, and trying to manage it where we can't.
Questions come through, which I think actually, again, applies to more than just what the question is asked from DB. Accessible transport, does this just mean a bus has a fold-down ramp, or that the community has accessible pathways without steep gradients? I would have to say, as someone who is a cyclist, clap away, sorry to interrupt that clap, as a cyclist, but as somebody who spends a lot of time looking at the lot of people who are pedestrians. The pedestrians in this city are getting a shit deal at the moment, and it hasn't got any better recently. Well, you're all glaring at me.
Was it
We're trying to change the topic.
Who's going to answer? Accessibility.
The first part of the question, so the actual modes that we're looking at, both in terms of the bus, rapid transit and light rail, are very accessible because they are level access. So you don't have to step on, step off. You don't need additional ramps that someone has to get out and make happen. So that's actually a fundamental shift in service provision. In terms of then how we get people to those locations, a big part of that is that from property to property in those main corridors, we'll be redesigning those whole corridors. So accessibility and visibility and crossing points are all integrated into that design process. Then we have to go the next level out, which gets back into that streetscape design, which is how do you then connect into those corridors and make that accessible as well. So it is a process, absolutely. We have to make sure that the new services are exceptionally good quality and are designed to be accessible, and build everything to bring people to those services, because that's ultimately creates the shift and the dynamic new city way of getting around.
And that's where the program talks to the city's investment in walkways and cycleways. So, and the integration of those is really, really important, because you need to think of it as feeding into and giving them the options to get onto a different mode of transport. So that experience is absolutely critical. And yes, there are parts of the city that are shit for walking.
It's not just the dogs to blame either.
No.
I think we've probably got time. I hope if you'll forgive me if I ask at least one more question from the point of view of the district plan. Partly because I envisage that there's going to be pushback on this, so I think it's worth mentioning it now. And that is old buildings and also height restrictions. I imagine that there'll be people who'll be worried about heritage buildings being lost, and that might be something they treasure. I'm from somebody who loved Ponsonby in the old villa days. The community that I loved in Ponsonby died a long time ago. The villas are still there, but the community that I cherished is not there. So I'm not so much worried about the houses, I'm more worried about the people inside them, the diversity in the group. That's just my own personal opinion. But what I also see with the issue with changes, maybe a freeing up of the building laws, is that there will be those who are able to afford, there'll be those who will be able to afford lawyers, there'll be those who can't afford lawyers, there'll be those, because the issues that I think we're dealing with are not just height restrictions, but also access to a view, but perhaps more importantly in this city and this climate, even as it gets warmer, being shaded out by your neighbours. Now, what are some of the things that you have got on the plan to address the concerns that I think people will voice over the next few weeks?
Well, quite a comprehensive set of amenity controls is the first thing. So, you know, daylight planes, we've got to differentiate sunlight access to daylight access, but, you know, the council has been really supportive of the design guidelines the office has been putting together to protect, you know, density, or development, density done well is what we call it. You know, the announcement last Tuesday is going to be an interesting time for us, and we're putting together a submission now. I see absolutely what the government's trying to achieve, and I think it's a brave and sort of courageous move. And I think with the select committee, it's going to be a great opportunity to put our views across in terms of that policy shift. But like I say to the staff, and sometimes the council's sort of sick of hearing me say, you know, designing communities, you kind of need a scalpel, not a mallet. You know, you've got to, it's actually development by development, good design, planners talking with developers to change their designs, think differently, and that's how you actually make a really well-designed city.
Do you envisage a lot of social housing in the future Wellington?
Well, I think that's a question for KO. I know they've got a huge expansion plan. We have our own, you know, suite of social housing offers as well. That in itself is undergoing a transformation. But for an equitable city, you're invariably going to need lots of different types of housing. And that is what's going to make and keep Wellington successful. You need diversity in housing, and density will give you that. The models, whether it's mana whenua housing typologies or co-housing outcomes, all to private ownership, that's all going to deliver the diversity that we need.
Can I throw two
Go,
things?
Andy,
Two
go.
things in there. The first one of them is we had and Tamitha was one of the speakers at there was a forum for Heritage Week last week, and it was interesting that someone who's done a lot of urban design work in Wellington for many years for the council as well said one of the issues with design guides and trying to get that really good quality density, so that's access to sunlight, privacy, those kind of things, that if you don't have some hooks in there, the developer doesn't even necessarily have to come and talk to you. So that is a fundamental issue about quality of development, that if you've got to have some ability to be able to say to the developer, please come to the table and talk to us. If you don't have that, they can just go, not interested. I can do it as of right, don't even want to talk to the council. So that's an issue. The second one is in terms of social housing. We've got a fundamental challenge with for council social housing at the moment. It's called income-related rents. And so we are in active conversation with the government at the moment about access for our tenants to income-related rents. If we don't get that, there is just some fundamentally quite heartbreaking differences between people who have access to income-related rents and possibly even their neighbour who doesn't. And it makes a profound difference to the amount of money they've then got in their pocket and the amount of money that allows them to live a life with dignity. And so we are really keen to make sure we get a result there for our tenants. If we get a result for our tenants, we also get a result for the council and gives the council the ability to create more social housing. Without that, we just go backwards and backwards and backwards. So we need the government to come to the party on this one big time.
Kia ora, Andy. I think one last question, and it's going to be a very quick yes or no, because it seems like it's shaped that way. For both the MRT and cycling options, are we explicitly considering reallocation of public road space from storage of cars, the movement of people and goods? Dave?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Emma? Well, that's it. The yeses have it. Folks, that's all we have time for. Please thank my panel. We have Darren Ponta from the Greater Wellington Regional Council, the Mayor of Wellington, Andy Foster. We have next to him Leon Hodgetts, Chief Planning Officer. Then we have Dave Brash, the Independent Chair of Let's Get Wellington Moving. From Ngāti Toa, Helmut Mulder. Representing Waka Kotahi, Emma Spate. And representing Taranaki Whanui, Ihaya Bukitapu. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for, sorry we're a little bit late, but I think it was worth hanging around to get that all in. Thanks. Now it's all up to you to submit. Now, can I just have some help from you guys at Let's Get Wellington Moving in terms of submissions for you? What's the main venue vehicle online?
Yep, it's all on the website. That's the easy option. But we've got a whole range of drop-ins and other ways of engaging that we were talking about before. So,
we don't have a slide of the meeting dates, do we, that we can put up? No, we don't. Sorry. The same for you, Liam, with the district plan?
Same again, website. We also have, of course, the digital district plan. It's interactive, very intuitive. Get online, and you can also lodge your submissions through that portal as well.
Is everything we've covered today, both at Let's Get Wellington Moving and with the district plan, can you get it by going to WCC?
Correct.
.nz/tomorrow?
Yep.
Both Let's Get Welly Moving. I'm getting the thumbs up from a message at the back.
Yep.
Great, one-stop shop. And there will also be on that website details of all the meetings, all the hui we're planning on this?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, good. Right, well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much if you've been watching online. It's been great to have your company. I'd also, before we go, like to thank a few people who've helped make this event possible. Please, can you put your hands together first for the people, the hosts with the mosts, who were your first impressions managers when you came in. Jan McAndrew, Renee Clark and Fiona Bailey. The venue coordinator, Kate Spencer. Now, thanks to the audio-visual people who helped make this possible, both for us here, but also those online. Anwar Gulo on camera. Paul Lawrence on camera. They're all down the back there, I think, at the moment. Tony Tufexis on sound. And doing the streaming, Isaac Kirkwood. Also thanks to Seb Bishop, Engagement Lead with Let's Get Wellington Moving, who helped me with some important details last minute. The signers, Fiona Love and Fran Collins. Finally, the organisers tonight, Claire London and Esther Solston. Kia ora.
Before I close with the karakia, I'd just like to address the huge elephant in the room. So my name is Ihaya. I'm a consumeraholic. I last consumed about 2 minutes ago eating some nice cheese over there. I don't think it was made locally. And before that I consumed earlier by driving my car into town. I'd like to thank everyone for the support that they give to me and the counselling I've had to try and move away from this consumerism. And I think that, I hope that before everyone goes to bed tonight and again when you look in the mirror about your own behaviours, because this is actually about climate change. So our ancestors made a lot of mistakes when they first came here. We corrected those mistakes to our credit. And our environmental tikanga was at the forefront of our thinking based on those mistakes. Like I said, to our credit, we corrected those mistakes. So the question is, has the dominant culture of this country corrected its mistakes? And I'd have to say no. But the dominant culture's got nothing to do with ethnicity. The dominant culture is GDP growth, or the misuse of it. So until we put ourselves into rehab and ask ourselves and stand up and address our consumerism, I'm afraid to say nothing's going to change. I'm not sober yet, far from it. And I think we all need to take a really deep look at ourselves. This is not about us, it is about our children and our grandchildren. Something to think about. Thank you. Me karakia tātou. Unu ia turu tapu nui kia wātea kia māmā te ngākau te tīnana te wairu i te ara takatū. Koe ara e rongo wakairi aki ki runga, ki wātea, ai rā kua wātea. Au, pai mārire.